big thing that I would say is first, I got injured. I had a tremendous mentor when I was an athlete at Ohio State, and it really showed me the potential of what sports medicine could be. So I got that idea in the back of my head, especially when I saw the contrast between what I was provided as a Division I athlete versus what people could have access to in the community. I went home that summer after my sophomore year, and I was like, I can't believe that people have to settle for this. So I'm going through physical therapy school, and I'm like, how do I make sure that everybody gets that like top level athlete experience?
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today we are joined by a guest with possibly the coolest name we've ever had on, Dr. Josh Funk, founder and CEO of Rehab, to perform a modern physical therapy company scaling across multiple corporately owned locations. We are digging into how he has built a repeatable growth engine through operations, omni-channel acquisition, founder-led brand, local marketing strategy, and AI-driven visibility. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks for having me. This is by far the earliest podcast that I've ever done, but it's always awesome to connect with people in all different areas of the world.
Yeah, and this is maybe one of 5 that Chris didn't have to really practice the last name before we came on. He's had a bad stretch of difficult names, so that is nice. All right, Josh, so I think you've got 15 locations, if I'm not mistaken. How did this start? Let's get back to location number 1. Give us an intro on how you got started in the space.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that I would say is first, I got injured. So I got to actually experience the profession. I had a tremendous mentor when I was an athlete at Ohio State. And it really showed me the potential of what sports medicine and a great sports medicine environment could be. So I got that idea in the back of my head, especially when I saw the contrast between what I was provided as a Division I athlete versus what people could have access to in the community. I went home that summer after my sophomore year, and I was like, I can't believe that people have to settle for this. Mm-hmm. So in the back of my mind, I'm going through college, I'm going through physical therapy school, and I'm like, how do I make sure that everybody gets that top level athlete experience? The environment, the education that the staff has, the overall deliverables, and the expected outcomes. I became aware that I needed to have really 3 things, right? I needed to have a certain amount of intellectual capital, right? My ability to do the thing, and then obviously a certain amount of intellectual capital surrounding business. I need to have social capital, because without social capital, it's really hard to get something that you feel like you have, a special service or a special product out to the masses. And then I need to have a certain level of financial capital. So, I call those the 3 C's. So after I graduated, I spent about 3.5 years, working for 2 other physical therapy business owners, doing personal training. I actually started a lacrosse services company that got pretty big, and then I sold that in 2018. But through those different areas of my life, both professionally and then also from a personal standpoint, I felt prepared to pull the plug, bet on myself, and open our first space, which actually was a small 1,200 square foot space. It was a sublease right between 2 turf fields at a place called Frederick Indoor Sports Center. It allowed us to walk right outside our room, access equipment that other personal trainers were using. And it was a really, really, low barrier to entry way to us to get up and running, screw up a little bit, learn, have days where there's no patients coming in the door, and then eventually figure the thing out and get to a point where we are today.
That's awesome. So I think you posted recently, correct me if I'm wrong, you said in the early days you would be looking for 1,000 patients or something in a year, or I've probably got the figures wrong. Yeah, something like that. So tell me what that post was, because what did that look like in terms of that first location, and how were you actually able to scale up to the figures that you've achieved today?
Yeah, so the funny part, the first location I just mentioned was a sublease. It was great. Again, low barrier to entry. It's a great startup space. We actually eventually left that space. Got a little bit tense back and forth. We started to do well. Started to get asked to force referrals to the personal trainers that were there. It just didn't feel good. So we knew we needed to make our exit. when we put together our plan for our first brick and mortar, we knew what the cost of that new space would be. It's going to be 5,000 square feet. You're buying your own equipment. You're doing build out. We thought that 1,000 visits per month was our target. That was about 4 FTEs for us. You get 4 physical therapists in there. You're doing really, really well. You're able to pay for, your operating costs. You're able to pay for fixed costs, build out costs, etc. And we quickly blew past that. We got to a point where we had 6 PTs in there. That's when we actually decided to open a second office, because we're like, wow, we have this 10-year lease. And under 2 years, we blew out our 1,000 visit per month target. And not only that, but we did it by 50%.
Wow.
That puts us where we are today, where, this week on Tuesday, we now have 1,000 plus visits a day. We actually had 1,045 on Tuesday. So, if you take your standard business month, 21 business days that you're open, that's a 21x on top of an early stage goal. So it's pretty cool to see, goals, obviously, ones that are achievable. But really, I think it largely is a credit to process improvement, hard work, and continuing to attract really, high quality professionals and people.
Yeah, going back to that first office you opened, where did the first customers come from?
So I had developed a really, really good following in the lacrosse space. I'd been doing stuff since college. I mentioned earlier that my first business that I actually created was a lacrosse services company, camps, clinics, club teams. I had almost 100 kid camp that I ran in my early years in college. And I largely think, the social capital piece is huge, right? You go out, you promise to do something, you deliver on it, and the amount of goodwill, especially that I think that carries through, and especially parents when you're taking care of their kids. I think it makes it so much easier to potentially come to them with another ask. So then when I opened Rehab to Perform, and I'm communicating and sharing and trying to get in people's network and trying to kind of get what I would call these 3-way conversations where I'm asking for introductions, it became that much easier, especially early on in the business where we didn't have marketing budget, didn't have an idea of how to handle social media, digital media, direct mailer, all of these things that involve a little bit more intricate strategy because there's spend behind them. I was really good at a handshake and a smile. I was really good at going in and asking for things. I was never too afraid to kind of dip into other people's networks. But that really was, I think, what I could attribute a lot of those early patients to.
So networking and hustle then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, there's even today, like there's no substitute for like the person-to-person connection and the amount of trust that somebody else can have in you as a result of a relationship that's actually built. We kind of had a little bit of back and forth with some of our PTs that, they're talking about the impact of social media. Hey, we need the social media posts surrounding X, Y, and Z, to attract this audience. I'm like, that's great. But the moment that a person goes and gets a relationship with those people in the community, in the 10 miles outside of your building, the moment that social media post doesn't matter anymore. So we can do these things on the social media side to, continue to have attention from these people. But if you go out and you value out, as we call it, right? If you value out, you find a way to meet them where they're at. You find a way to give value where they're out in their practice field, where they're at in their gym space. You're most likely going to get such a deeper connection with that person, and they're going to be more likely to go, Nick is the person, this is the solution that he solves, this is why you should go see him, etc. Not only that, but Nick is somebody that I can put you in direct contact with if anything was potentially going to pop up. So, social media, I think sometimes we overstate the importance of it. It's not to, ever dismiss that it is an incredible part of our marketing ecosystem at this point in time. But again, those bread and butter, handshake and a smile type relationships, like there's no substitute for it.
It's just not as sexy of a strategy. Everyone looks, they're like, oh, the influencer, and that's how they got big, and everyone wants to replicate that.
Right.
It's easier to like daydream about than I'm going to go like work hard and network and hustle for 5 years. And I think that's probably part of it.
Absolutely. And we didn't have to really get forced into a lot of the, the paid strategies until the pandemic. When I can't go out and shake your hand, Chris. You know what I mean? I can't go to events. I can't go out on the field with people. I can't go in the gym with new people. Everybody I think kind of circled the wagons and stayed really, really close to people that they were comfortable with. So, they're not going to invite a stranger in person, not knowing what that stranger may bring to them. And we got forced into, everything from direct mail to, your digital advertising to your social media, ways that were less personally intimate, but still good ways, whether or not it's top of funnel, bottom of funnel strategies, putting us in a position where it rounded out our marketing bench.
Okay, that's cool. And we'll definitely get into that sort of, because like pandemic, post-pandemic growth trajectory, which has been crazy. But just before we leave that sort of first brick and mortar store, I'm interested to know, were you able to, how quickly did you hit that 1,000 visitors per month at that initial store? So that was like your target in order to justify the cost on that spend. How long did it take you to get there? And were you able to attribute to any particular channel for that acquisition, which then appeared to be something that was scalable into a second and third store, as opposed to, okay, this is great, but I'm just hustling and hustling and hustling. I don't think I could replicate that across 2 or 3 stores. However, I've got a huge email list, which I know can drive like 40% of what we need. Or like, how did that look?
Early on, there was nothing. It was literally, it was just relationship marketing early on. I mean, fortunately, I was young in my life, young in my career. I had no problem leaving the office, doing stuff in the evenings, hitting stuff before the office in the morning, doing stuff on the weekends. I enjoy speaking. So the opportunity to go out and deliver a presentation, a workshop, something where I could kind of do almost like a lecture and lab with people, I think that really helped out. I think that even opening the second office, that was probably when I started to realize the limitations of that. That was when I started to dive into at least a Google strategy, knowing that that was a bottom of funnel opportunity for me to get in front of people, quote unquote, physical therapy near me. We were missing that. So that was probably the first way that I got in there. But it's still like even opening the second office, like largely like handshake and a smile, workshops, going out. Hey, what can I do? Oh, okay, free consults. Okay, we're at this event. We're popping up. Like a tent and a table is not overly expensive either, and it also allows me to go out and sell to people in mass. Right? You got 500, 1,000 people at an event. People are walking by. I will have no problem speaking to strangers and kind of pulling you into a conversation about physical therapy. So I think some of that, probably. Was a little bit easier just given my personality. My mom's pretty salesy. If you meet her, she can probably talk to just about anybody. So some of those things really helped out, but obviously that's not scalable. So you need to recognize that. You need to put things in place that are more scalable. Again, media, ads, mailers is a little bit more scalable. Also recognizing things that you do exceptionally well. 30-second elevator pitches. How do you write those up? How do you understand the audience that you're speaking to and potentially craft it a little bit more personalized for the audience? So you're creating scripts for other people. You're allowing them to go out and do some of these things, knowing that, you're attracting some great people that also have, great conversational skills and the ability to connect with people. So yeah, that's, kind of probably not the direction you thought I was going to go in, but I would say, honestly, it was not until probably the 5th office where we had what I would call a full marketing ecosystem. And that was where we went outside of my sphere of comfort. The places where I had been interconnected with the community. I have 4 other siblings that also played a lot of sports. So there's, you can imagine from a youth, a club, high school, college, when you're playing all of these different places in the community, all these different sports, it's very, very easy to kind of go through like your 7 layers of separation. Hey, you played here, this person, boom, boom, boom. We opened the 5th office and it was like an hour away. So there was none of that connection. So prior to that, we really, really looked at a full marketing plan. We made sure that, we weren't trying to bite off more than we could chew. I'm a big believer, like do one thing well before potentially adding a second thing. But you're trying to kind of, microdose all of these channels that you've never really done before, and find a way to look at it in a little bit more of like a phase-based progression, knowing that at
Mhm.
the end of the day, you do need all of these things if you want to continue to move forward.
Yeah, you said do one thing well before you move on. But at this point, you're talking about office number 6. You're doing a lot of things well, because I think this is where a lot of small businesses, they can fill up their schedule, they can hire more, and that's sort of where they get stuck like that. How do we actually build the business bigger? Not just the marketing side, but the staff. And then to open a second office, it's a whole nother like management set of management skills. How do you approach that? And where do you think other businesses get stuck? Where they're operating well, they're keeping things busy, but they don't seem to have the time to do these other things to expand.
That's where I think we get back into like operations, and I think fortunately I've always been good at that ever probably since the second office, where you're talking about creating SOPs, you're talking about creating cheat sheets. I think I was always very, very good at documenting. So even though I wasn't particularly the best at, say, front desk or best at revenue cycle management, I was good at watching somebody do things and documenting, or having them document through the process. I think I've always been very good at creating structure for others. So, every time you have a new hire, do you have things in place for them? If I don't have anything in place, which I didn't at one stage of the business, then how do I get them to do kind of like a 3-day activity log, kind of like somebody would do for nutrition? Hey, what did you eat
Mhm.
over the course of 3 days? Okay, perfect. Which of these items or these tasks that you performed do I actually have steps behind, right? Do I have a one-page cheat sheet? Do I have an idea of how to get from A to Z for the thing that you did? Okay, I don't. Okay, how do I potentially chunk this over a quarter? Okay, I have 13 weeks here. How do I get 13 cheat sheets out of this person? So some of that just comes down to you looking at what individuals are doing, taking the time, putting structure in place, and then also recognizing that every new hire is an opportunity for you to challenge what you have in place. Every new person is going to require different ways to potentially learn A to Z. So, what's text based? What has images? What has potentially like a Loom video now at this point in time that we use a lot for training. So, I think those things, we really buttoned up with location two. A lot of it was in Google Drive at that stage. Recently, within the last handful of years, we've moved over to a platform called Trainual, which allows us to check logins, check time on the platform, check competencies, and overall create a little bit more of that multimodal learning environment. But I would say that, yeah, we were doing a lot of things well, and most importantly, and we really haven't talked about it a ton, but it was the reason really the whole business came to be. We were delivering an exceptional experience. When it came to physical therapy, the experience itself was exceptional. It was something worth speaking to your friends about. It was something worth sharing. It was something worth putting reviews on Google about. And that was the thing that really, really allowed us to, I think, work our way through, a lot of challenges, a lot of internal friction, a lot of external friction that popped up because people were so excited about actually coming to PT. We had created a situation that didn't feel like a standard medical environment. It didn't feel like a grudge purchase. They were like, cool, I get to go to PT today instead of I have to go to PT. And I think that's where you're going to get a lot more people to extend you grace as you work through different front desk headaches. They realize you're a small business owner. They realize stuff's not perfect. Oh, there's a delay here. And that goes back a little bit also to the social capital piece, where I think if you develop enough of kind of like a local following, you have enough relationships, people are more likely to also want to support you through some of those things. So they might be more likely to have an individual help you out, potentially not even asking you to pay them, but to help you work through things, whether or not, again, it's revenue cycle management, it's front desk, it's back desk, it's marketing, all of the things that might pop up during your Swiss Army knife phases, as I like to call it, during the early stages of business.
Mm. You seem to have that wonderful mix of skills that I feel fortunate enough that Nick has like 50% of what you've described. Maybe I've got the other 50%, that ability to speak, communicate with people, but also like SOP and you seem to have it all in one, which I think is amazing.
I think we're 85%.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's very kind of you, Nick.
Max. That's what we've hired the other gaps.
Yeah. Okay, so things are going well, and then doom, pandemic. Talk to us about that, and talk to us how you got out of that.
Yeah, so we had just opened our third office probably 8 months before the pandemic. We opened our fourth office 2 months before, and I still remember being in one of our offices and the NBA shut down. I was like, the NBA stopped its season. No freaking way. Like, this is going to be a big deal. And you circle the wagons, you try to do your best to, take care of your staff. You're taking care of your patients. You're also trying to be open, as much as you can in a way that's safe and legal. I think the hard part at that time is, you're in different counties. So we had 4 offices in 3 different counties. All of the counties were doing things different. So this is where I realized the importance of internal communications. I think people focus a lot in business early on external communications. You're talking about things like a newsletter. You're talking things like a social media. You're talking about things where I'm presenting to people, but presenting to my team and communicating things internally amongst us is a different ballgame. And it is extremely important and I think overlooked. And a lot of people early on, they're in text message and they're in probably email. This is where we switched a little bit more to having like virtual meetings. We introduced Slack into the company ecosystem. And those are ways I think where we really could get people to, in real time, feel very, very comfortable about how the company was handling things. We didn't, quote unquote, lose anybody in terms of their faith in the company operating in their best interests. I think that was just extremely critical. Yes, did we have to go through situations where we had to furlough people, right? Yes, we had to downsize our staff a little bit. Yes, I had to stop paying myself for a certain time period during 2020 as we kind of figured out what the financial ramifications would be with a significantly decreased volume of people coming in. The one benefit, though, that I will say from a business standpoint is all of the college kids got kicked out of their colleges and they came home. Where did they end up rehabbing? Well, they ended up coming home and spending time at our offices. And the college kids, for the most part, were very, very comfortable with continuing on and kind of doing things as they were, normally doing, obviously with certain restrictions. So that helped out tremendously. We actually stayed profitable in 2020. And I think that was probably the single most important, guiding light for me to say, we have something special here. Like the worst of the worst events happened in 2020. We opened 2 new offices within a year of the pandemic hitting, and we still had a profitable company at the end of 2020. Like we have the people, we have the process, we've got the special sauce, obviously from an experience standpoint, and we should continue to grow. We signed our 5th lease shortly after, our 6th lease shortly after. We opened 4 offices actually, kind of during that, the back half of the pandemic, July 2021 to October 2022, we opened 4 offices. And that was pretty aggressive for us. It was 4 offices in 15 months. And at this point, I would say that's kind of all she wrote, because we've been continuing to grow here. Yes, we have 15 offices now. 16 and 17 are being built, so those should be ready at some point later this summer. I've got an LOI out on 18. I'm close to the finish line with 19, and we're really just going to keep moving as long as the opportunities that present themselves are ones that we feel confident in.
Wow. Okay. That's moving fast now. Okay. So you mentioned a while back that I think it was around office number 5 or 6 that you had to come up with like a different playbook. Like it wasn't going to be people where you could go out, meet people face to face. It was a little bit further outside of your area. What was that playbook? Because that's clearly worked. You've been able to replicate that over, new offices you've added.
Yep. This is where I get into now, like our current playbook. A lot of it will start with website, right? You need a great website. You need an SEO strategy, right? And now at this point in time, and I was talking to Chris about this a little bit yesterday, but we have a generative engine strategy, right? You need a strategy for your AI engines. There's some overlap. There's also a little bit of nuance. You need a cold outreach strategy. You need a warm outreach strategy, and they're definitely different. You need social media. You need digital advertising. You need events, and you also need workshops. And I think with all of those, you put yourself in a really, really good position where you have a true ecosystem. Why did we need those for location 5? The first 4 locations were within about 15 miles of where I grew up. I knew a ton of people. Again, I mentioned my siblings play a ton of sports. There was a lot of connection there, not a lot of name familiarity. I could kind of interweave, myself into a complete cold environment as a result of asking for introductions for people, right? So if I needed to kind of hunt my backyard, so to speak, it was very easy for me. Annapolis was our 5th office. I knew next to nobody there. If I went out and I needed to kind of navigate and find an introduction to people, it was extremely challenging. So I was starting with a very, very blank slate. Best part about that, again, is it forced us to actually sit down, build out a thorough marketing plan, build more structure, build more SOPs, have a better idea of marketing KPIs for some of these things, especially knowing that we were going to spend on them. Like, that's a big thing that I think a lot of people miss. It's like, hey, if you're going to spend on this, you need to know how to also hold yourself or whatever organization you're outsourcing to accountable. If there's no KPIs here, you're spending just to spend. Okay, you're going to probably understand cost per acquisition, and maybe that's about it, but you don't understand the actual mechanics of how to potentially get cost per acquisition down. So those were, very, very formative moments for us. I think, again, learning certain areas, trying not to bite off more than you could chew, trying not to add too much, trying to add just enough, trying to approach things in a phase-based way, where eventually, we have the ecosystem that we have today.
Okay. So what channel is your biggest driver for new customers now? Is it organic? You do well with organic SEO, so I'm interested to dive into that. I'm wondering if you're targeting, like, because you have multiple locations on the same site, you don't have a region specific domain for each location. So how does that strategy look? And then which is the most profitable acquisition channel as well?
I would say, to go back, I'm not sure what you mean by region pages. We have pages on the website for each location. We have Google My Business for each location. Those are things that are extremely important. There's strategies for the website pages. There's strategy for the Google My Business pages. I would say there's strategies for the entire company. You take Google reviews. I mean, we have over 2,500 Google reviews. Do you have a strategy in place to ensure that you're getting Google reviews? Going back to the most important thing too, do you have something actually worth searching? When you look at rehab to perform search, I mean, it's steadily going up, and ideally you're giving people a reason to search for your company. But I would say at this point in time, it's really, really hard to point to any one given area. If I look at mature offices, we typically will have a good mix of 1/3 of the people are coming and it's net new. So you have your net new channels where somebody's never heard of you before. You've got 1/3 of people that actually have experienced your business before in a situation where we're a service-based company. It's not recurring. It's reoccurring business, right? Ideally, they're coming to us for a different injury, not the same injury. And then you have word of mouth. So if you have strategies that help out with net new, you're thinking of top of funnel, bottom of funnel. You're thinking about retention, being people that will return to you. And you're thinking about word of mouth, which should be viewed as advocacy. Are you doing things that are giving you new patients or returning patients or friendly patients? And I would say at this point in time, that really is, kind of our big picture strategy. Yes, places like Google do well. Yes, physician, gym referral, youth sports referral, club sports referral, athletic director referral. All of these different places are giving us people. So I would have a hard time really pointing to any one place because, quite honestly, it takes the ecosystem. And I truly think that without the ecosystem, we wouldn't be in the situation we are now.
I think that's a good place to be in because it's like if you said 80% comes from Google, it's cool because you can push on that harder. But at the same time, it's all your eggs in one basket. So it's good that you have such a diversified place where all your customers are coming from. Now, earlier you mentioned you also have a GEO strategy. I want to dive into that. But first, why do you think that one's important? I think some people are all in on GEO, and other people are saying like it's not really driving that many new customers. Everyone's talking about it, but it's actually only a fraction of the visits are coming from these AI models. So why do you think that one's important?
I think it's important because it's just the future. I mean, it's the direction we're heading in. Why would I not want to be an early mover, an early adopter to a space where if you look at the age demographics of the people that are typically using those platforms, that that's your future population. That's your future consumer base. So I think, getting a head start of other people. If we can get a cadence in there, I feel like we're going to be in a great spot. I mean, if you talk about, how do you create a little bit more subject matter expertise for your company? I mean, there's no negative there. That'll actually help in
Right.
Google too. So we actually have been using a little bit more internal IP and creating things that are a little bit more palatable for people externally, things that people might be searching. Some of those things that we've been doing for internal trainings. How can you potentially get on a regular structured cadence and maybe get out 52 injury specific articles throughout the course of the year, right? We're already talking about these things in the four walls. We're already training our staff on these things. Why would we not potentially create a consumer facing article that helps us out in two different places? Yes, it's not everything, but at the end of the day, does it take that much time? It might only take about 30 minutes to take something that we already have that's internal and put a consumer facing lens on it. So I would ask anybody who hasn't moved on it, why? Are you that busy that you can't potentially allocate one 30-minute block a month? That's still 12 different articles that you might have put in place. And then I would also say something that I'm incredibly aware of is a founder led brand also helps out, where I'm helping by doing certain things. I'm speaking, I'm doing stuff on social media, I'm at events, I'm being included in articles at local publications, regional publications, national publications. All of that stuff compounds. So for people that are serious, that are people like us, we want to continue to grow our business past 20 million this year, and ideally beyond. You have to come up with a strategy for these things, and you have to look at the direction that business and really society is going.
I think that's so important. And me and Nick have been in the weeds a lot with AI visibility. And one thing that we've noticed, especially when it comes to like conversational search, looking for recommendations for specific services, is that it's not just like clinics or businesses that are recommended. It's clinics and businesses alongside the people offering or delivering that service. So 100% behind that, building personal brand. I'm intrigued to know if that's a strategy that you've looked to extrapolate across your locations. So when somebody's searching for, I'm looking to do rehab in Idaho, where can I go? ChatGPT isn't necessarily going to say go to the Idaho Rehab Clinic. It's going to say go and see Dr. Chris Pantelli at the Idaho Rehab Clinic because he's the best person. So have you, is a strategy for your other locations to try and build personal brand for your PTs at those other locations?
I would say that we're always trying to think company first. And I only say that because the company will always be here. Our people might not always be here. So it is something that you can put strategies in place to allow people to use the company to build their own personal brand. Because I would say for the most part, the company is the bigger vehicle than the people. Even me at this point in time, I can walk into some of our newer offices. No one knows me. They know the company, and I'm fine.
That must be cool.
That's how you create something bigger than yourself, And then if I also create a situation where people are always asking for me, that's not necessarily good either. So I would say our efforts are largely centered around the company. We provide people with options to, pour into their niche. Hey, Nick, you like soccer. Okay. You like knee injuries. We're going to set you up with these soccer programs based on the connections that we already have. We're going to allow you an opportunity to go out and do presentations, talks, injury consults, recovery sessions, etc. Awesome. You're going to see more of the patients that you would like to see. We're also going to set you up with these medical professionals that specialize in the knee. You're going to go do a lunch and learn. You're going to talk. You're going to invite them over, maybe do a tour of our facility, etc. Like we can provide people with opportunities to build their brand under the company umbrella. But I would not say that we're putting a ton of time and energy into building each clinician's individual brand. At the end of the day, we want people to feel comfortable that regardless of who you're being seen at the office by, you're in great hands. You're getting the same R2P experience. You're getting the same environment, education, outcomes that you would get at any of the 15 locations that we have right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you guys currently seeing a lot of customers that come from ChatGPT or any other AI models?
I wouldn't say a ton, but you are starting to see it pop up on the referral list. Again, it's something that I'm aware of. It is going to be used more and more and more. At some point, Facebook was brand new, Instagram was brand new, TikTok was brand new. You even talk about Google. Google was never a thing at one point in time. And somebody saw the future, right? And what did they do? They started to put a strategy behind, I need to do X, Y, and Z on Google. I ideally will always be in a position where at least I will be able to, kind of take a step back, forecast, right? That's one of the things that a lot of people, they're so busy in their day to day, they can't forecast, right? They don't have time to think. They don't have time to ask themselves, is my business 2027 proof? Right. Instead, they're focused on, is my business May 28th at 6:36 proof, right?
Yeah.
Because they're so focused on being reactive in their business. One of our core values is on offense at all times. It's not to say that is a reality, but we intend to be on offense. So if looking at stuff like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever people are using, is something that we feel comfortable that the younger population will only use more, we should allocate time behind it.
Yeah, and I think, you're right. Every new technology, every new platform that's come out, there's been a lot of people who are like, no, I don't think so. And
Yeah.
I think this is even more like core to just business development because, if you look at like TikTok, you're thinking like, I don't want to hold up my phone, record myself dancing. That's dumb. But now we're talking about like, it's all brand building. There are some short-term strategies, getting in listicles, things like that. But for the most part, it's about building up your authority. That's, like you said earlier, that's going to help with your Google rankings. It's going to help with everything. So it's like classic marketing. And I think if you haven't started thinking about your strategy for this, you really should, because it is going to be the direction. I think the younger generation, they're going to be like, you guys Google? You use Google, really? So I think, you're right on there.
Yeah, and is Google going to start to adapt a little bit more and kind of become a little bit more like Gemini? I mean, is Gemini and Google even going to be that much of a separation at one point in time? I have to ask myself, it's like, why would I have this separation between the two if people are largely looking to search for things, everyday things, right? But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, we will have more AI search referrals in 2027 than we did in 2026.
Absolutely.
So at that point in time, there's no reason for me not to allocate some kind of a strategy. And it is on my calendar every Monday. It's one of the first things that I do at this point in time because it involves a little bit of boring work. Again, at this point, there's some things we're doing with regards to internal IP. There's some things that I'll do back and forth with our marketing officer a little bit to think about things for your website, think about things for external publications. The acronym EEAT, right? It's like expertise, education. Drawing a blank on the others, but that's more things that are on my kind of personal
Authoritativeness and
cadence.
trust. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
Authoritativeness and trust. Yeah.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
I'm working on building out more and more and more things that involve me being external, being less operationally focused, but being out and about. I mean, doing stuff on a podcast here, right? There's going to be a transcript from this that you can take and probably put into at least a blog article, right? And benefit from some of the conversation behind. Or you could take the transcript from this. I could also put other podcasts in and I could use it to help out with my social media scheduling. I mean, sometimes your social media posts will pop up now in the search functions. So that's something where I think there's really like low hanging fruits there that don't take, again, a ton of time for us to have things that compound. I'm a big believer in aggregation of marginal gains, right? So we could view this as being minutia or marginal, but if at this point in time we're doing a lot of things well, why would I not allocate a small block of time to something that I know that will only aggregate for me in the future.
Couldn't agree more. And I think the important thing is you are building a moat as well against the people that aren't doing it. So if you're listening and you haven't started, you may as well start now, because you're only this far behind now. But the longer you wait, the more Dr. Josh Funk is going to be ahead of you, and he's going to take over the world. Josh, we would love to have you on again when you hit 50 locations. I think that would be amazing to see what's going on then.
If that might be pretty soon too. The rate you're going.
All right, let's do one at 30. We'll do one at 30.
Okay. 30 locations. Well, actually, it'd be great when you come to the UK. Let's get your first UK location as well. Yeah. It's been a great conversation. If people want to find you, where's the best place they can go?
At Dr. Josh Funk on Instagram. I'm very active there. For anybody who's on LinkedIn, feel free to add me there as well. But those are probably the two places where I'm most involved.
That's awesome. Josh, thank you so much, and we'll see you at 30.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.